Did you ever wonder how you got to be the person you are? How often have you asked about somebody how they became the person they are? Take Ann Wiggins, for example. Sweet and kind and gentle. Now, you boys don't get to vote on that. But that's how you're perceived, because that's who you are. A wonderful lady. Some people choose to be otherwise. I have an aunt back in Marion, Ohio. She's deceased now, so she can't come and get me for saying this. But her house always smelled like lemonade. She had a sour attitude, and I found out she sucked lemons all day. That's how she got to be who she was, I guess. But it's an interesting question, how we come to be the person we are. I began to dream several days ago about how Diane became the person that we knew her to be. And so my imagination started running all over the place. And so I'm going to take you on an imaginary journey today. And I want to tell you that if you didn't know this before, when we came into the world, you thought you came into a nursery or a crib or whatever. You actually came into a large exhibition center. All of you, all of us. And we got to choose who would we become in those exhibition centers. There were tables and booths and people, signs all over the place where you could choose who you would become. Now, can't you just see little Diane, bright eyes, beautiful, gifted, little baby coming in, and oh my gosh, you can see her eyes now, looking at all the signs. You see, it happened. It happened on February 1st in 1947, and you gave birth to a beautiful baby. I know, Don, you had something to do with it too. But you welcomed this little dwarf girl into the world. And there she stood, in awe. A life before her, being able to choose the attributes and characteristics that would make up her life. Listen in your imagination how Diane went through the process. She looked around, she grabbed a container, and she began to move toward, and the container she had was a shopping bag. It was really a treasure chest, actually. And she began to look around and think, who would I like to become in my lifetime? This little Dwiggins girl, bright-eyed. Oh, she saw a sign that said music. Well, her DNA kicked in. What choice did she have coming from the Dwiggins family? So she got in line, and she got all the music she could get inside her soul. And then she saw one that said smiles, and she lined up and she said, that's me. And then she looked at sign that said radiant personality. And Diane somehow said, boy, I'd like to have one of those. Supersize it. And then she had a sign that said enthusiasm. And she got in that line. And for Diane, it was kind of passion on steroids. And then she saw one that said friendship. And Diane said, I don't ever really want to be alone. I want to have a circle of friends around me. And then she saw a sign that said loving heart, and she got in that queue. A loving heart. She determined that others would matter. And then there was one that said adventure. And Diane thought, you know what? That'd be a neat line. Maybe someday I'll get to Elkhart, and I'll get to Lafayette, and I might even get to Hong Kong. Oh, she was thrilled. And then she saw the one that said excellence. Now that's Diane. There's only two classes in the world for Diane, first class and no class. Guess what? Which one she chose? She enjoyed order and symmetry. Even to the end of her life, she could tell by the look if something was out of place, bless her heart. She saw a sign that says family, and she said, oh, I need and I will have a precious inner circle. And then she saw a sign that said, teacher. And she thought, you know, I have all these gifts in my treasure chest. I can use them. I can pass them on. And so she did. And finally she saw a sign that said, culinary arts, cooking, pie making. And she didn't go. Diane and I share something in common. I have a kitchen in my home because it came with the house. It would get dusted. Diane and I had something in common. Well, off she goes into her life, little Diane growing up, and she came then into our lives from this imaginary place where all of us get our gifts and she got hers, having made her choices to accept who she wanted to be in terms of her character, in terms of her very makeup, how she would come at life, her personality, how she would use her talents, her preferences, her qualities were all there. The very gifts of her identity came at the very beginning. That's my imaginary philosophy. But is it so imaginary? Actually, when you think about who exactly Diane Jones was, I think I can make a credible story out of that thesis. She never squandered her gifts. She had an overflowing treasure chest, which she passed on and on and on, and it never became empty in her life. The theme of her life was simple. There was a little boy one day after church in Fort Wayne. When I was pastor there, we used to go to a restaurant after church. I tried to let people out early so we could beat the Baptists. I used to do that in Winchester too. Had to do it before John Tanner got to me. But there was a little guy with his mom and dad in a high chair. He was probably 2 years old enough just to say a few words. He'd been to church that day, and apparently one of the hymns that stuck in his mind as he sat in his high chair was some words from Blessed Assurance. And so he broke out in song. He only knew a few words, but he started singing at the top of his voice in the high chair right in the middle of the restaurant. This is my story, this is my song. And then he sang the second verse. This is my story, this is my song. And then he sang the third verse, and guess what it was? That's all he knew, but I thought, my oh my, a child this size, picking up the very essence of life. It was the essence of life that Diane Jones lived out. Her story and her song is why we are gathered here today. That's what draws us together. That's the common bond. It's because she invested herself in that story. Oh, she had that smile that she kept, that she got way back when. She carried it with her clear to the end. Clear to the end, that smile. It was contagious. Her voice, as I listened once again to Diane sing, I thought how blessed I was to be her pastor on 2 occasions, to hear that voice lift me as I would get into the pulpit. It was pure, it was beautiful, and it lifted us. Pure, pure music. She had a passion for teaching. God only knows the number of people that Diane taught in whose life she touched in the classroom. How many here today would have been touched in the classroom? I'm so glad you're here. What a beautiful gift God gave you in Diane Jones. Oh, she had laughter, a bubbly personality. She lifted our spirits by just being around. She lit up the room. She had a passion for excellence. There are people today probably seeing a psychotherapist about how many times their flags hit the ground. But she had a passion for excellence. Now, she wasn't quite as bad as my mother-in-law. I used to tease my mother-in-law that I was going to be giving the eulogy at her funeral, which I did. I love the gal, I still do. What a wonderful woman. But I said at her funeral, you know, my mother-in-law is the definition of a perfectionist. That's one who takes great pains and gives them to others. I don't know that Diane would reach that level, but she loved excellence. Yes, she was a true friend. Just ask her inner circle of friendship. She had a loving heart. She was always up for an adventure. And she, of course, family was at the center of Diane's being. Her family of origin, the Dwiggins, who gave her such a wonderful start, and her family of choice, the Joneses. Well, they say it all starts at Ball State at an instrument locker. Magic happens around those things. Something happened. I don't think things just happen. I was thinking about that dynamic between Max and Diane today, and I remember in September 1958 going to church and looking across the sanctuary at a beautiful brown-eyed girl that now we've been on with each other 57 years. But it started across the same, something happened. Wasn't at a locker at Ball State, but something happened. You know, I was supposed to be listening about Jesus, and I was centered in on Judy. But it happened. And Max, something beautiful happened there, and you formed a bond, a relationship that has been a beautiful thing for all of us to watch. Max, all of us here owe you a debt of gratitude. I know this is Diane's service, but this guy carried. He carried her in love. And you're not supposed to applaud at a service like this, but if anybody deserves it, Max Jones does. Max, I didn't ask your permission to do that. If you're going to fire me, don't do it on a tweet. Max, I know the quality of music you listen to, and I'm sure a lot of it isn't country. I don't listen to a lot of country either, but there is a song by Vince Gill that's entitled Look at Us. Some of you may have heard it. Look at us after all we've been through, still leaning on each other. And Max, if you were to hold your marriage up against that light, you and Diane could say, look at us. Thank you so much for modeling that. And Max, thank you for your part in giving us Gavin. Gavin, and also bringing into the fold Erica, a person who brought so much life to Diane. Gavin is the one responsible for putting all the tech stuff here with help. But Gavin, we are so grateful to who you are and what you've done. And I would say this would be a reason for our second applause. Well, thank you, Max, for seeing this through. It didn't just happen. You didn't look at Diane and say, you know, there aren't many Joneses in the world. Would you like to become one? Did trace mine. We came back in Wales in Jones factory number 37. I don't know what number you came from. But anyway, you didn't just say, do you want to be another Jones? It just happened. But in the process of all that, Max, what we're so indebted to you and Diane for is you lived out before us your wedding vows. They weren't just words. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer. In sickness and in health, till death do us part. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What a wonderful world it would be if we could sing and love and share and dance through life like Diane. You know, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I would love it. Have it said of me, he danced, he sung, he loved his way through life. Ralph Waldo Emerson, a poet and philosopher of the 1800s that I really admire, said this about what it means to live a successful life. It defines Diane Jones. He wrote, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. Listen to this. To know that even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. That is to have succeeded. Diane, you have passed the test with highest honors. That defines you from the cradle on, and you will outlive yourself. Now, it's a commercial time, and that is that Max and Diane Jones have established the Memorial Music Lesson Scholarship Fund to help pay for the music lessons at Winchester Community High School band and choir students. All 4 years they'll get scholarship help from this fund. This is a plea on their behalf because Diane's voice will live on. This song will go on. And I ask you to join me and your many friends here to contribute in such a way that we can make this happen. That table is the magic today. And on Max and Diane Jones family and the Dwiggins family, I invite you to participate to make the music live on and on and on. So be it.